When you have a creative practice that includes consistency, process over product, and privacy, a magical thing happens. Instead of struggling to get into the studio or motivate yourself to work, your creativity itself becomes your biggest teacher as an artist. And this goes for you writers, whatever your medium is. This works for everybody. Did you know you can make art and feel better? Art heals. I'm living proof of that. This video is part 2 in a series called Effortless Creating. It's a short masterclass I put together to help you learn all about how having a creative practice can help you make art and feel better. If this video just popped up in your feed randomly, hi, I'm Lisa Sonora, and you just don't even know what you're getting yourself into right now. I'll put a link up there to the first video in this series, which will help this make a lot more sense. You'll also find links in the description below to resources I mentioned in the video, as well as the Creative Practice Workshop. Okay, let's get into it. Welcome back to the 6 Keys to Effortless Creating Masterclass. In the first video, you learned about the first 2 keys to effortless creating, mindset and meaning, and how they help you with the number 1 problem I see people struggling with. What I've seen in working with thousands of people as a therapist and coach is that when it comes to creativity, or even business for that matter, where people really get stuck is in fear or confusion of some kind, not the technique or the mechanics. This video is going to explain the 3rd key to effortless creating. The thing I'm asked most often is how I'm able to make a living as an artist. And I could tell you all about the tactics like PayPal buttons, affiliate programs, social media techniques, pricing, marketing, branding. But really, I credit my success as an artist and business person with one thing. And that one main thing is having a creative practice. So what's that? A creative practice is the method behind the magic of art making. And this means that you can do your creative work regardless of how you feel, your mood, your inspiration, your energy levels, and all that other stuff that gets in the way. So your task is to have a creative practice. Think of the creative practice as the method behind your art making. And the secret isn't in your products, services, packaging, messaging, pricing, and all the other details we can get so hung up on. We could sit and spin on that for a lifetime, really. So the secret is in having a creative practice. So in this video, I'll show you why having a creative practice is so essential for anyone who wants to create. And this is true whether or not you intend to sell or show your work. A creative practice is what makes it possible to even do your creative work in the first place, regardless of your mood, inspiration, how you feel, motivation, and all that other stuff that gets in the way of art making. My kind of breakthroughs are usually always a statement of the obvious, and I started calling them duh moments. And what I'm about to say is going to sound so obvious. You can't sell or show anything unless you've created something. Now, why am I bothering to state the obvious? Let me tell you a quick story. I've heard this from other authors, and I've experienced it myself. Once people know you're a published author with an actual book out there, pretty much the number 1 thing someone will say in response is, "Oh, I have a book I'm working on too," or "I have a book in me," or something like that. Bottom line, they too want to be a published author. So stay with me. I've heard this so many times. And also what comes next, nearly 100% of the time. They say, "I want to get my book out there, but I'm stuck. I've had the idea for 20 years. So when someone confides in me that they're stuck, of course I want to help. So I ask them, well, how's your writing going? And you know what they say? Oh, well, I'm not actually, writing. Okay, so this is duh moment alert number 2. You can't be a published author unless you've written something. If you want to write a book and you're not writing, where you are stuck is in fear and confusion. It's not mechanics. It's not technique. You know how to put pen to paper. And remember what I mentioned, that in all my years as a therapist and coach and being surrounded by artists my whole life, I've found that what holds people back is fear and confusion, not mechanics. In this example, in this story, they know how to write. They've taken a writing workshop or gotten a writing coach. They've bought all the books on how to write a book, but they're still not actually writing. Now you're having another kind of moment altogether. The hair-pulling, screaming, crying, desperate, and moody moment. Or wait, maybe that was just me back in the day. In the case of the writer who's not writing, it's not a mechanical problem, meaning it's something that having more knowledge or technique can solve. What's happening is that fear or confusion or both have taken hold. And I've repeated this many times already in this short video because it's got to sink in because it's a little bit counterintuitive. What this is an emotional or directional problem that can be solved by having a creative practice. So what is a creative practice? My own story will explain it best. Have a good moment laughing at these photos. This is me, my undergraduate degrees in music, and I went to a music conservatory, very competitive, creative environment. And the thing is, in music school, we were expected to practice, but we weren't taught how to practice. We were taught technique, but we weren't taught things like how to deal with stage fright, how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with lack of motivation, and how to practice even when you didn't feel like it. And also, this is a huge one, how to perform or produce when you didn't think you were good enough. And those are just a few of the things that were particularly challenging to me as a music student. And the truth is, I suffered with all this the whole way through music school. And it was then, I was still a teenager, that I started to experiment with all sorts of things that I hoped would help me practice and perform. And these experiments led eventually to the tools I'm sharing here with you in this masterclass. So it includes having a creative practice. So what do I mean by the term creative practice? Just think about the word practice for a moment. And if you've ever had to learn something new, usually we get good at something by practicing, by doing it over and over again. If you've ever learned to do yoga or meditation, or a sport like golf, tennis, or dance, you learned by practicing. And meditation is called a practice because you can only meditate by doing it, not reading about it. When you sit and meditate or do yoga, it's called a practice. Football players even go to practice. Actors rehearse. Dancers exercise and warm up. But what about visual artists and writers? We need a way to practice too. And especially, we need a way that helps us deal with our emotional blocks, confusion, and resistance. We need help with the fear and confusion about what to create and how to go about creating, including where, when, what. And this is all easily remedied when you have a creative practice. This is the method for navigating the mysterious and often fearful and confusing territory of art making. Now, establishing a creative practice is such a huge subject because it touches every aspect of how we work. It's how we choose which ideas to pursue and how to make a living from our creativity. It encompasses all of that and everything in between. So developing a sturdy creative practice is one of the things I've helped people with the most. So take away this: all pros have a creative practice. All pros have coaches. And so the thing is, your creativity doesn't have a good chance of supporting you or feeling that satisfying unless you too have a creative practice. An effective creative practice has three main elements. Number one, it's consistent. Consistency is how often you practice, whether daily or weekly or some other amount, but also in what you do in your creative practice. And the simpler your creative practice is, the easier it is to maintain. So if you keep your creative practice methods the same, you won't have to reinvent the wheel each time you come to your practice session. The second element is that it's devoted to process. So you're process-oriented rather outcome-focused. And this means you have a safe place to make a mess, make mistakes, try new things, and go bravely into the unknown. If you often feel like, I have no idea what I'm doing or how it will turn out, then you're engaged in the process of creating. On the other hand, if you're wondering, how can I sell this? Who would buy it? What is this about? Or you're evaluating it as good, bad, ugly, beautiful, meaningless, or important, then those are signals that you're caught up in the product and focusing on the outcome. So being focused on your products and outcome are important when you're producing work. But the distinction here is you also need a way to engage in your creative process without worrying about the outcome. That's because worry blocks creative flow and creates a mindset that stops you from creating. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is trying to mix these. You have to keep your product separate from your process. And the third element of an effective creative practice is privacy. You don't show what you're doing in your creative practice work to anyone or try to explain it, even to yourself. That's because privacy will protect you from evaluation, judgment, comparison, and criticism. It'll also protect your creative time from interruptions. And this requires learning how to set and keep strong boundaries, which becomes easier with experience. And another tip I'll offer is if you don't make a boundary around your creative work, the world will not do it for you. When you have a creative practice that includes consistency, process over product, and privacy, a magical thing happens. Instead of struggling to get into the studio or motivate yourself to work, your creativity itself becomes your biggest teacher as an artist. And this goes for you writers, whatever your medium is. This works for everybody. And that's because you have a creative practice. When you have a creative practice, your creativity becomes a regular, happy habit instead of something you struggle to maintain. Now just imagine what you would create and how you would work without having to rely on motivation or discipline. And even better than imagining, take time to write down those thoughts, feelings, and actions in the workbook that goes along with this masterclass. If you've noticed that you have the same things happening over and over again in your creativity, you keep getting stopped by the same thoughts and interruptions and old patterns, or having so many ideas that you're overwhelmed and don't do any of them, the fourth key to effortless creating shows you why, but more importantly, how to get out of the negative patterns that keep you in the same old stuff.